it going, everybody? Today we're going to be taking a look at a whole bunch of figures on a certain theme. And you might know where I'm going with this since you probably already saw the title of this video. These are your fish, and this is your chips. Today I'm going to be doing an unboxing of all of these figures. We'll take a look at their details and do a transformation demo for each one of these. Then they're getting a box grade before we wrap up. These are all great figures with simple and interesting designs. Silly wordplay aside, I think they all work really well together aesthetically. So having them all together in a huge review makes sense to me. There's a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. First, I'll start off with Halo, and of course I've got my trusty Red Devil. But before we get into it, we'll take a quick look at package details. So there are three Goldfish types. You've got Halo, Orbital, and Unreal. Obviously these are all based around primary colors, or at least their packaging is. You've got yellow, blue, and red, and these are all designated as BB-59A, B, and C. Some details about this figure are in Mandarin and are designed by their in-house team X2R. This is all beautiful stuff. In case you don't get the names, Halo, Orbital, and Unreal are all video game references. And I'm telling you straight up, the designers of 52 Toys are a bunch of nerds. They're my kind of people. They often make references to bands, music genres, and pop culture in general with their figures, and when you get to know them by their toy designs, their sense of humor is unmistakable. So 52 Toys has started doing more 4cm figures. For the longest time, the only ones available was a bunch of variations of the little dinosaur called Dio. So they really ramped up new 4cm figure designs just in the past couple of years. All signs point to a lot more of that to come. I believe what they're trying to do is position 4cm figures as more of an entry-level, lower-cost figure type design. So they're also a bit more kid-friendly. Anyway, on the back we've got some promotional materials and a character card. This is something new to me that they did with this particular character card. It's not a standard trading card size, and it's definitely a bit larger than a typical Beastbox card. A typical trading card or collector card size is about this. So this unfortunately means you're not going to be able to store them inside of a standard size card sleeve. As far as this character goes, let's see what we have to say. I don't know what EP2500 means. I guess these are some stats? Attack, defense, and special, I suppose? Halo has a strong sense for completing certain objectives. Its friends often say that it is big-headed and has a crush on things. That's how it is and charms its followers. And of course the aquatic faction symbol. Here's something interesting. I don't know why they chose to put this on the backside. Basically the attributes of how this figure works. That's usually what the instructions are for. Plus you get the older style Beastbox logo. And if I remember right, this figure design has been out for a couple of years. Alright, let's get this guy out. Pretty simple as far as contents of the bubble card. You got a 4cm filler insert, you get the figure itself, and sort of a little stand that the figure is supposed to be displayed on, which is actually part of its transformation. So this figure is sort of an odd hybrid between a display piece that includes a pedestal and a parts former. In case you're not aware, these 4cm filler inserts are really handy to have. They give you storage and display ability for 4cm figures and fit neatly inside of a standard 5cm box charger. Pretty simple. It's an accordion style hinge that you pop open. It's a surprisingly sturdy piece. Then you got some ports on here so you can attach to the top of other stands. They also have a backer so you can actually pop this lid down and it'll snap right into place, which creates a back plate for your figure if you need it. Alright, let's tackle this fish. So the way these are designed is they connect with a bunch of adjoining pegs and ports. The whole thing is intended to be disconnected and dismantled from the base. You have these corner pieces, this main post, and of course the base. So I had to edit out a bunch of fishing around. One thing I have to point out that sucks about this particular figure is you have all these organic funky shapes that are supposed to form the stand. You pull it apart and put it back together to form a particular shape, right? When you're getting into shapes that aren't straight lines and angular pieces, the instructions really need to be very explicit about what you're supposed to do with it. It only shows the transformation in one direction, so it doesn't even show you how to put the stand together properly. The only hint you get is right here, where they show that piece. I guess you can more or less reverse engineer from that, but it doesn't show the steps how to get there. So there's no point in sitting through my first attempt at putting a display stand together, but the takeaway from here is the instructions were so unclear I honestly thought I was missing a part. I've had less difficulty with Beastboxes that have far more complex transformations, so this particular figure design proved to be unusually problematic. But moving on, we'll talk about Halo's details. This one is whatever type of goldfish has a big bulbous head. I love these little cartoon eyes. Then you've got mutation breeding, whatever that means. There's some mobility with the fins. It has a nice paint job all the way around, and I love the spray paint effect. Got some chevron stripe detailing. The top part is asymmetrical with a sort of a tank on the side. More little fins on the bottom. These can kind of fold out. On the back side, here's sort of a turban. I don't know. Given the position, it might be this little fish's I really do kind of dig the transparent panel on top of the translucent pieces. It gives it an interesting effect with this nice hexagonal texture. That's pretty cool. For articulation, there's not a whole lot going on here. It's basically a bunch of movable fins. Given the nature of this type of creature, you're really not going to see a whole lot of articulation from a goldfish anyway. We'll put Halo down for now and get back to him later. Round 2, we're going to move on to Orbital. It's a beautiful blue fish with some nice detailing and a lot more of the same stuff on the box. We'll take a quick look at this character card. This one has 1200, 1200, and 1500, again, whatever that means. Orbital does everything by following its own path. The path can be any shape or size, but it must make a loop. I interpret that to mean that Orbital takes a meandering route wherever it chooses to go, but essentially it swims in a circle. Again, an oversized collector card was an odd choice on 5-2 Toys' part. We have another accordion-style 4cm box. Just to show you real quick, these do stack together nicely. Also, if you have a few you want to stash away, they'll fit 4 up inside of a 5cm box charger. So at this point in the unboxing, I finally figured out why I thought I was missing a part for the stand. And it all came down to the angle that this piece is shown in the instructions. It doesn't clearly show you what that piece is supposed to be, this long skinny connection piece, which I thought was a separate part. I misinterpreted the instructions because it wasn't clearly shown. What I would point out is, you get a bit more of a hint on the package, so at this point I have a better sense of how the stand comes together. Now we're in business. Let's take a look at some details. Orbital is a beautiful baby blue fish with a much smaller head and big old round eyes. It's kind of cute and cartoony. Nicely sculpted rear fins and tail. The fins of course have joints, and that's basically all you get for articulation. There's also a top fin, which Halo does not have. Same deal where you have an asymmetrical canister on the side of the spine. Mutant breeding, and it has a transparent part on top of an opaque piece with a hexagonal pattern. It's really nice detail. Type Win? I don't know what that means. Here's the spray painted effect over blue for the rear fins, with an overall white, blue, and pink color scheme. Every one of these goldfish designs are pretty nice. I'm digging them. Real quick, I'll point out that the instructions are individualized for each goldfish, even though they're all showing the stand assembly at the exact same confusing angle. But we have a lot more to look at, so let's keep going. Moving on with number 3. Let's jump right in. Accoutrements, some nice box art. Let's take a look at this oversized character card. EP1200, don't know what that means. Stats are 1200, 1000, and 1800. Unreal stands for its sloppiness, and it does everything as it pleases. No matter how great the belly is, everything must go according to its mood. If you want it to get things done, you must play by its rule. I don't know what that means. As far as its instructions, again, they're specific to this figure. Same deal with that stand being shown at an odd angle. We have another accordion-style filler insert, and again, they do stack. So you can have a nice little display for your figures if you've got them all in box mode. I think there's something to be said for the figures that have a lot of transparent parts and these interesting color schemes. It really shows them off a little bit more nicely. And the common theme with these figures is tiny side fins. Unreal is unique with its huge bulbous eyes. They seem like covers for its pupils, but I don't know that for a fact, and I'm not going to try to force them off. I really like this salmon pink color scheme. Like Orbital, you've got that spray painted white on base plastic. Then you got this turquoise and white. That really is a nice looking piece. Of course, all these fish have a little turban. So we'll get these configured. I don't think you could even really call it a transformation. It's just pulling these pieces apart and putting them back together. It fits on the corner like this. These pieces fold up and these two pieces connect together. It's probably going to be in your favor to have this part rotated backward and this piece facing forward. Then put it in that center post. And you got a nice little display stand for this guy. So let's get the trio together. As far as color scheme and the overall look of all these little fishies, I think they all look great. They're very obviously intended to be display pieces. The stands are obviously intended to be a sort of pseudo-coral reef. One way or the other, I love the color schemes, the sculpts are great, and even though the instructions for the stands aren't entirely clear, they're really nice to look at. Alright, so I think we're due for a transformation demo. We'll do these one at a time. The first step is to take the whole thing apart. Just get all these pieces laid out. These curvy pieces tuck away inside their main components. You'll just want to rotate that inward so they'll fit inside like that. We're going to need to make corners. The way you do that is dependent on the curvature of the counterpoints. You get this peg and post connection that's opposite the other part of the display stand, and they'll connect together. That's going to form that side, and you'll repeat this to form the opposite corner. Plug them together like so. You could add it right now, but as far as what the instructions show, they apparently want you to do just one side only, and then start transforming the figure. I suppose that's just the way it needs to fit with the entire structure, so that's the way I'd advise doing it. So you'll just have the back corner with this particular piece connected, then you'll move on to transforming the figure. You're going to pull the chest open, the center section will hinge down, then you're going to tuck the head inside of that cavity, then collapse that whole structure back up. Then you'll tuck away the fins if they're extended. These underside fins need to collapse in, and the same for the upper fins, so they'll be flush up against the body. On the backside, these upper dorsal fins will need to fold inward. You want to make sure you rotate these long fins up while you're rotating the back assembly down. Then you're going to form corners on the top side. Make sure the back piece is folded down 90 degrees, and then the rear spine needs to be pushed in. The hinge part will fold forward 45 degrees until it fits this shape. They're going to touch together and form a corner. Here's the shape that we wound up with. This is the point where you're going to start connecting everything into the stand. We'll keep working our way through the group. Obviously, these are a completely unique type of transformation where the parts of the figure itself is utilized as a stand. For the most part, we're following the same steps for Orbital that we did for Halo, with one minor exception. It has a top fin, and Halo is the only one that actually doesn't. So we can just fold that down like so, then tuck in these pieces to form around the shape of the figure. And we're going to pop open these hinge pieces, open the belly to fold the head in, and then you're basically reversing your tracks. Then the long tail assembly needs to come up and around, and we're going to take this piece and fold it down like so. Then collapse that spine so it forms a corner. Then you're going to collapse them together so they form a corner. Then we assemble everything together. The peg is going to fit in that hole. One thing to remember, you'll need to make sure the spine is pushed up, otherwise it won't fit. You'll also want to make sure everything is pushed into place securely. Then you can start assembling everything together. It'll help to check around the cube to make sure everything's locked in securely. Moving on to number 3. Again, pull this whole thing apart. We'll get back to that. Collapse the fins. They'll fold around the contour of the belly. The dorsal fin folds down. Again, we're opening up the chassis so we can get the head in there. Pull the belly open, tuck the head in. The head and eyes piece will need to fit against the contour of the inner cavity. Then the belly panels will need to be rotated back into position. These long fin pieces will need to rotate up and out so they have clearance to form the angles of the top of the figure. We're going to collapse these fins in like so. This whole piece folds down. Then the long fin sections will rotate down. Push it in the spine. Again, as with the other ones, you want to make sure the spine is pushed up and collapsed. Then we're going to rotate these pieces down to form a 45-degree angle. Everything collapses up nice and smoothly. Then we'll assemble it all to form a cube. One thing you could do is, this is not shown in the instructions, but I'm just thinking this through. You could actually attach these pieces to the top of the figure as you're pushing it down on the platform as you're assembling the cube, assuming that all the pieces are in the right position. As long as you get everything lined up correctly, this is actually a legit approach to transforming this figure. And that's the third Goldfish, Unreal. So given the color schemes and the nature of these being parts formers, credit to 52 Toys for having the balls to think outside the box and do something really unique and interesting with figure designs. Of course, we also have their filler inserts. I'm not sure if I did something a little bit off when I transformed these or not, but I'm finding something that's definitely a downside of these organically shaped parts forming figures is everything has to connect very solidly and be pushed in completely. At least after an initial transformation, I'm finding that they're a bit of a tight fit. They do look really nice inside of their filler inserts. And like I mentioned before, you can stack them and they attach together pretty securely. They are, of course, called filler inserts, so they'll fit inside of a standard 5cm box charger. The downside of this though, and it's especially true for the newer 2.0 box charger design, filler inserts cannot be seated securely on top, so there's no way to connect them to a standard box charger. I think that's something 52 Toys could have done with this new box charger style, is give you a legit way to connect the 4cm filler inserts. The whole idea is you're supposed to be able to form a wall, but you can't really do that between these two figure sizes. Let's move this stuff out of the way so we can give these gorgeous gamer goldfish a box grade. This is my rating system of 6 categories of 5 points each for a total score of anything between 0 to 30 points. All of these are nicely decorated with some great graphic detailing, color schemes, and beautiful touches. They're fairly benign pieces, but also a welcome addition to a display case. 4 out of 5. There isn't much to go on since they're not of the action figure variety. They're strictly display pieces, and I don't think you can even really do much with them without their stands, which are pretty nice but inherently limited. 2 out of 5. In the grand scheme of things, the transformation is actually really simple, although that's hampered by instructions that don't clearly show one crucial step. Since it's a lot of parts that are required to form the box modes, the tolerances are pretty unforgiving for connecting parts. My first attempt at this is literally what you see in this review, and I probably needed 1 or 2 more tries to get it right. 2 out of 5. All of the fins are articulated, but there again, these are display pieces, and be that as it may, articulation is a bit irrelevant. 1 out of 5. The Goldfish are a lot of transparent panels and thin parts, and in spite of that, they do not feel cheap or flimsy at all. 4 out of 5. Again, they're display pieces. Your mileage may vary as far as how much fun you have with them, but for my part, I enjoy having them on display and appreciating their color and details. What was a little less fun for me was the transformation process. 2 out of 5. And that brings the box grade total to 15 out of 30. Moving on to the second half of this video review, and we're going to talk about this little guy, Trans 03 Finder. The typography on the front of the box is a bit unclear, so it could be called Trans Finder, but for my part, I'm just going to call him Finder. This is an older figure that goes back a few years. It's not a standard release. MB-1024 is a little bit of a joke on computer language. Generally, when you hear 1 megabyte or 1 gigabyte for RAM or storage or whatever, it's actually a rounded number. 1024 is the correct number when you measure by bytes. And usually you'll see that in legal disclaimer for any computer product. Finder was a collaborative special release, I think for something called Programmer's Day. It's a pretty basic figure design, a little cartoony character with very large eyes, and it turns into a computer monitor. It also has a little keyboard and desktop accessories. Designed by X2R? So I had to buy this off of eBay because it's not sold at retail, and definitely not available in the US, so you'll pretty much have to find a third-party seller. There will never be a Megabox with a higher number than this guy, and why is that? Because it would take them years and years and years, and hundreds of figure designs to get up to 1,000. Although they retired the Megabox line and rebranded as Infinity Box, so there's that. This old Megabox logo really is a nice throwback. I should check out these QR codes and see where they take me. I don't know about you, but I want to see what's in this box. I got my trusty Red Devil, so here we go. Here's an instruction booklet. The box itself arrived in pristine shape, but this was mashed up by the manufacturer when the box was packaged up. So that's unfortunate. This particular box is one-of-a-kind box charger insert. It has some HTML and CSS markup coding language, which is interesting. Yeah, there's a header tag, an H1, tutorial in italics. Has this little guy been drinking? At import bourbon? Who's importing bourbon? Y'all been drinking on the job? I'm going to put this insert back here. It's an interesting little piece. As far as the rest of the contents, we've got a box charger and the figure itself. Man, this little dude has a huge head. Finder is a desktop computer, so of course he came with accessories. This looks really familiar. It used to be a thing with PCs. I believe it's a type of media controller with volume knobs on the side and play buttons and whatnot. Anyway, I remember seeing computers with this type of device around 20 years ago, and I can't quite put my finger on it. If anyone knows, please leave a comment. It connects to the keyboard with a tab, and apparently it's not intended to completely detach. It's on a slider, and there's a slot on the side. He's got a cute little 2-button wired mouse, and Finder is the devil, apparently, because he's got 666 on his mouse. What's that all about? Bourbon? Sign of the devil? 5-2 toys? What are you trying to say about this little guy? So I looked at the box again, and the media controller tube thing can detach from the keyboard at the hinge. It's just a peg and pose connector. And you can attach the keyboard to this little guy, if you can keep the arm attached. It's on a small ball and socket type connection, and that sucker just popped right off. It pops back on just as easily, though. Finder has a cute little key on top, like an old-fashioned wind-up toy, which also detaches. He has a tiny little body. Here's some interesting schematic graphics, and all over a nice detailing. The legs and feet are a single solid sculpted piece. There's no articulation whatsoever, other than the tiny bit in the arms and the head can turn. You got video and charging, more graphics here, including a hamburger menu. We're going to have to take a crack at transforming this little dude, but before I do that, I want to take a cue from the instructions and attach his gadgets. Yes, so that's how it works. The left arm has an any peg post, and you can attach his media controller doodad, like a little arm cannon or something. Although with this very limited articulation, you have to point it in a very specific direction to get it where you want. The only way you can realistically attach the keyboard, given the proportions of this character, is with that corner peg and post connector. Sort of like a little keyboard shield. There's a post on the back, so I guess you can attach the mouse there if you want and give him a little tail. Now this little kid's armed and ready for computerized combat. Incidentally, I should point out this figure does actually have 3 modes. It has a humanoid mode, of course, which the instructions call fight mode. It's computer mode, of course, and it's box mode, so we're going to take a look at the latter two. First up, we'll attach the mouse to the backside. You'll just want to turn the tail so it's not sticking out. We're going to take the key off. The back of the head will pop open. Then from there, we can pop open the top side. Then you can stick your finger up there to pop out the CD tray. This is an extra decorative touch for the desktop mode. The side pieces are on rails and they need to come down. It's a bit tight. From there, you have enough room to pivot the entire body into the chassis of the head. You want to have the mouse completely tucked in and the arms folded back around it. Then it'll fold right up like so. The box mode has storage for all of its accessories. You got tabs on each side and these connection slots on the interior. Before we do that, the face needs to come out. It might take a bit of fiddling, but you'll want to make sure that the keyboard is connected to the tab securely. So you'll wind up with this configuration. It doesn't just have storage for all of its computer accessories, it can also store its wind-up key. The way you do that is very straightforward. You just stick it in the back with the tab and port connection, and it snaps right in there. The back piece is on a slider, so it'll need to come out like so. That gives you enough extension so you can reach the opposite post. We'll push that in, and there you go. It's an interesting box mode. It's a computer monitor, like an old iMac or something like that. And of course it came with a box charger and it fits right in there. But we're not done. We'll get this little guy into his computer mode. We'll just reverse our tracks on this a little bit. We can leave the wind-up key in there. We'll want to take the keyboard and mouse out, obviously. We'll need to pull his torso out partly so we can get at the mouse. Now we can pop it out. Then we push the torso back up into the chassis, and the face will need to be pushed out. That's the position it needs to be in for the computer mode, sort of like an old-timey CRT monitor. Then we'll close everything back up. Just want to make sure these pieces are extended out so they can meet these tabs. And they'll snap together. So yeah, I guess as far as the face, you can either have it pushed in or out. Apparently it doesn't really matter one way or the other. There's really not much to it. You can position Finder's little keyboard and controller accessory in front of the monitor. Interestingly enough, I didn't notice this before. The mouse and keyboard do not have a connection port, so there's nothing to plug this thing into. So the wired mouse accessory is actually fake. All you can really do is position it off to the side of the keyboard, sort of. So that's the computer mode. You get a little CD drive on top, a face for the monitor, and a mouse and keyboard and this controller doodad. And that's pretty much it. Just a quick refresh on putting everything away for the box mode. We'll just open it up and reinstall the accessories. This is not hard to demo because it's honestly just about the simplest of transformations. And you have the compact, sturdy little box mode. It really is that simple. Now we'll give this devilish digital destroyer with a drinking problem a box grade. Finder is right in the Pantheon of 5.2 Toys core design sensibilities, and it's an interesting, quirky little character. It doesn't even need a character card to explain anything. The design speaks for itself. 4 out of 5. It's a goofy little cartoon character with a giant head.
Big head. Big head.
And a tiny body. And it comes with a variety of accessories that serve multiple purposes. Plus, it's essentially a triple changer. 4 out of 5. Transformation is pretty straightforward, although you do need to pay attention to where parts need to be tucked in and which parts need to slide around. 4 out of 5. Finder doesn't have a whole lot in the way of articulation, but I think it has it where it counts. 3 out of 5. Construction on this piece is fairly solid. The only real problem I have is where those little arms attached with those tiny ball sockets, which can easily pop off if you're not careful. 3 out of 5. The variety of configurations affords a number of different ways you can interact with this thing. It works as a goofy little action figure that I think kids would enjoy playing around with. The simple transformation and accessories are fun to fiddle with, and it works just as good as the Goldfish as a display piece. 4 out of 5. And that brings the box grade total to 22 out of 30. That's a wrap on the 5.2 Toys Fish and Chips episode, featuring BB-59A, B, and C, Halo, Unreal, and Orbital, as well as MB-1024 Finder. I got a kick out of all of these. Finder has a lot of great quirky features, and man, every one of these Goldfish is really pretty. They all make great display pieces, and Finder is definitely a neat desk toy. Oh, and one more note. This video finally closes the loop on an opinion poll I offered right here on YouTube, asking about which figures you'd like to see me review. I hope you all enjoyed this review. If you did, please take a few seconds of your time to leave a like, a comment, or share this with a friend. That helps out my channel tremendously, and I always like hearing from you guys. If you have anything in mind that you'd like to see, please let me know. I do take requests. At any rate, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.